Lily had always loved the rain. While most people hurried inside, clutching umbrellas or ducking under awnings, Lily saw the rain as an invitation to feel free, to let go. Ever since she was a little girl, she had danced in the rain whenever it came, spinning in the downpour with her face tilted toward the sky, her arms wide open as though the raindrops were her partners in a grand waltz. Even now, at 17, Lily hadn't outgrown her love for those spontaneous, rainy moments. It wasn't uncommon for her classmates to see her running outside during lunch breaks or after school when a storm rolled in, her bright red boots splashing through puddles, her laugh ringing out across the courtyard. Some people found it strange, but most just knew it was Lily being Lily, a free spirit with a joy for life that was as infectious as her laugh. But while Lily embraced life with carefree abandon, Jake was the exact opposite. Jake Bennett was quiet, practical, and grounded. He never did anything without thinking it through, planning ahead, and making sure all the details were just right. He had always admired people like Lily, people who lived in the moment, but he'd never understood how they did it. His life was ruled by schedules and plans, each day mapped out carefully in his mind. Anything outside the lines made him uncomfortable. So, when Lily and Jake were paired together for an end-of-year art project in their final year of high school, it was, to put it mildly, an unlikely combination. The first time they met to discuss the project, they sat across from each other at the school library. Lily twirled a strand of her wet hair around her finger, having just come in from the rain, while Jake meticulously wrote down the outline for their project, each bullet point carefully numbered. "So," Jake said, looking up from his notes, "I was thinking we could start by gathering research this week, then move on to brainstorming ideas next week. After that, why don't we just start painting?" Lily interrupted, leaning forward with a grin. "I mean, it's an art project. We should let our creativity flow instead of planning every little thing." Jake blinked, looking slightly taken aback. "Well, we need a plan. Otherwise, it'll be chaotic." "Maybe a little chaos is good," Lily suggested, her smile widening. "Art is supposed to be messy, right?" Jake frowned, glancing down at his carefully written outline. He wasn't used to chaos. In fact, he avoided it at all costs. But as he looked at Lily, her excitement and passion practically radiating off her, he felt a small flicker of curiosity. Could chaos really be good? He sighed, scratching the back of his head. "Maybe. But can we at least come up with a general idea of what we're doing before we dive in?" Lily laughed, a light, musical sound that made Jake's heart skip a beat. "Deal." As the days went by, Jake and Lily worked on their project together after school. Jake stuck to his schedules and outlines, while Lily painted with abandon, splattering colors across the canvas with little regard for convention. Their styles clashed in the beginning. Jake was careful and precise, while Lily was wild and spontaneous, but slowly, something magical started to happen. The more time they spent together, the more they began to influence each other. Jake found himself loosening up, adding a splash of color here and there without overthinking it. He even started to enjoy the moments of unpredictability, the way Lily would suddenly throw a new idea into the mix without warning. It was exhilarating, in a way he hadn't expected. Meanwhile, Lily started to appreciate the value of structure. Jake's careful planning gave their work a foundation, something solid for her creativity to build upon. She found that the combination of their styles was creating something truly unique, something neither of them could have done on their own. But it wasn't just their art that was changing. As the weeks passed, Jake and Lily began to spend more time together outside of their project. At first, it was just small things, grabbing coffee after school or working in the library on rainy afternoons. But soon, they found themselves seeking each other out even when they weren't working. They started talking about more than just art, about their hopes, their fears, their dreams for the future. Jake learned that Lily wanted to travel the world, to experience everything life had to offer without being tied down by routines or expectations. And Lily learned that Jake, despite his calm and composed exterior, was scared of failing, of making the wrong choice and disappointing the people who depended on him. They were different in so many ways, but the more they talked, the more they realized how much they had in common. One evening, after a long day of painting, Jake walked Lily home. The sky had been cloudy all day, and as they reached her front porch, the first drops of rain began to fall. Lily's eyes lit up, a familiar gleam of excitement shining in them. "Do you feel that?" she asked, stepping off the porch and into the rain, her face tilting upward as the drops fell faster. Jake stood on the porch, watching her with a mixture of amusement and disbelief. "You're going to get soaked," he said. "That's the point," Lily called back, spinning in a circle as the rain poured down around her. She laughed, her arms outstretched, her hair sticking to her face in wet strands. Jake couldn't help but smile. There was something about the way she moved, so free and full of life, that made his chest tighten in a way he didn't quite understand. He'd never met anyone like her, someone who embraced the world with such open arms, who wasn't afraid to get a little messy. "Come on," Lily shouted, holding out her hand toward him. "Dance with me." Jake hesitated. The rain was coming down hard now, drenching the street, and his clothes were already getting damp just standing there. But there was something about the way Lily was looking at him, her smile wide and inviting, that made him take a step forward. Before he knew it, he was off the porch, his hand in hers, the rain soaking through his shirt and dripping from his hair. He felt ridiculous, dancing in the rain like some kind of movie scene, but the look on Lily's face made it worth it. They spun in circles, their laughter mixing with the sound of the rain hitting the pavement. Jake felt a rush of adrenaline, the cold water making his skin tingle, but it was Lily's laughter that made his heart race. He couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so free, so alive. "See?" Lily said, her voice breathless as they stopped to catch their breath. "Isn't this better than staying dry?" Jake looked at her, his chest heaving with exertion, and nodded. "Yeah," he admitted, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "It is." Lily grinned, and for a moment, they just stood there, rain pouring down around them, the world feeling strangely still despite the storm. Jake's eyes met hers, and something shifted between them, something unspoken but undeniable. Without thinking, Jake reached up and brushed a wet strand of hair from Lily's face, his fingers lingering on her cheek for a moment longer than necessary. Lily's breath hitched, her smile fading as her eyes searched his. For a second, Jake thought about pulling away. He thought about all the reasons this was a bad idea, how they were so different, how he didn't fit into her world of spontaneity and chaos. But then Lily smiled, that same wide, carefree smile that had drawn him in from the beginning, and all his doubts melted away. Before he could second-guess himself, Jake leaned in and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, like neither of them were quite sure what they were doing. But then Lily kissed him back, and everything else seemed to fade away, the rain, the cold, the world around them. All that mattered was this moment, the two of them standing in the middle of the street, soaked to the bone, wrapped up in each other. When they finally pulled away, both of them breathless, Jake felt like his heart might explode. "Wow," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. Jake smiled, his forehead resting against hers. "Yeah, wow." They stood there for a while longer, not saying anything, just enjoying the quiet, intimate moment between them. The rain continued to fall, but neither of them minded anymore. For the first time in his life, Jake wasn't thinking about what came next. He wasn't worrying about schedules or plans or the future. He was just here, with Lily, in the moment. And it felt right. Over the next few weeks, things between Jake and Lily shifted. Their friendship had always been strong, but now there was something more, something that made every glance, every touch, feel electric. They still worked on their art project, but now their time together was filled with quiet moments of affection, a hand brushing against the other's as they painted, shared smiles when no one else was watching. But even as they grew closer, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that their time together was temporary. Graduation was looming, and soon they would be heading in different directions, Lily to an art school out of state, and Jake to a local university where he had been accepted into an engineering program. One evening, as they sat on a bench outside the school after finishing their project, Jake finally voiced the question that had been nagging at him for weeks. "What's going to happen after graduation?" he asked quietly, his fingers laced with hers. Lily looked up at him, her brow furrowing slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're going to art school, and I'm staying here. What happens to us?" Lily was quiet for a moment, her eyes searching his. "Jake, I don't know. I don't have all the answers." Jake sighed, feeling the familiar weight of uncertainty settle over him. "I just don't want to lose this or lose you." Lily smiled softly, squeezing his hand. "You won't. No matter where we go, we'll always have this. We'll always have us." "But what if it's not enough?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily leaned in, pressing her forehead against his. "We'll figure it out. One step at a time, okay?" Jake nodded, though the worry still gnawed at him. He wasn't used to uncertainty, to not having a plan. But with Lily, maybe it was okay to take things one day at a time. Epilogue: a year later, Jake stood in the rain, his hands in his pockets as he waited at the train station. The rain fell in heavy sheets, soaking through his jacket, but he didn't care. He'd learned to love the rain, to embrace it, just as Lily had taught him. As the train pulled into the station, his heart raced with anticipation. The doors slid open, and there she was, Lily, her hair wet from the rain, a wide smile on her face as she ran toward him. Jake caught her in his arms, lifting her off the ground as she laughed, the sound filling the air around them. "You're soaked," she exclaimed, pulling back to look at him. Jake grinned. "So are you." Lily laughed again, wrapping her arms around his neck. I missed you. I missed you too, Jake said, his voice soft. As they stood there in the rain, holding each other, Jake realized something important. It didn't matter where they were or what their future held. As long as they had moments like this, they would be okay. Because, as Lily had taught him, sometimes life was about dancing in the rain, about embracing the messiness and uncertainty, and finding joy in the moments that mattered most. The end.